Now I have a topic that I feel compelled to talk about. Just got through watching a very good video. It could have gone into greater length, but they wanted to keep it simple because it's a super complicated topic about processed foods and stuff, especially the ultra processed. And the minute I started watching it, one of the first examples they gave, had already indications that I got to see it, got to try to compress this so I don't spend 30 minutes on it. My thinking started actually like last week. In my haste, I didn't check. There was one can that was put over from the seasoned fajita strips into the tinned beef that I buy, and I went, oh shit! But I hate to throw away this good, beef and stuff. And as I began eating it, I realized that it just tasted fucking horrible. That's because in the generic brand, they were using very low sodium. The brand name tasted horrible, and must be really horrible because it was too salty. Salt is one of the many things you can use to cover up flavors and stuff that are unpleasant flavors. I mean, even here in the Austin American-Statesman, they got this black gay dude that gets up there and gives little tips and hacks and stuff. He says, "Is your coffee bitter?" And then he showed how to put in salts into the coffee. It's kind of not, and yeah, the salt kind of masks the tannic acid, the bitter, the funky taste. And yeah, that doesn't work. It's now that my palate has been getting adjusted over months of avoiding, I've noticed that every time I've decided to be weak for a moment and violate my dietary rules, which is minimum, get the purest, least toxic food that's legit. And I'm afraid they're actually doing that too in the generic sharp cheddar cheese I've been buying. I've been getting kind of a gut reaction from it. It may have actually been partially responsible for that little liquid fart the other day. But they're right. It's chemically, they cited right off the bat a study that they did where they even had like the Kellogg's Chief there and stuff. They had produced cornflakes with no added salt and stuff, and when all the taste testers, which included executives from Kellogg was a nut, as I remember. He was one that wanted to introduce circumcision to prevent masturbation or something. He was a weirdo. Battle Creek, Michigan. I've actually been through Battle Creek on Amtrak. And yeah, I don't. That was and a lot of these food companies are doing the ultra processed. They were owned by tobacco companies who have been experimenting for years. Because actually, I've noticed that when I actually buy additive-free tobacco, like American Spirits is supposed to be additive-free and all that stuff, they taste really harsh to me, and that may be the secret. Because actually, I was at a point where I wanted to quit. I was so withdrawn from being in the hospital and rehab so much. I was down to one cigarette a day, and then they threw me into that fucking snake pit called West Oaks Rehab, and where they limit what time you can go out. Whereas in Compass Rehab, as a competent adult, I was allowed to go under my own power and we'll go out, eat, fix myself a nice Keurig and cup of coffee and go out anytime day or night that I want and have a cigarette. I was ready to. Then they threw me into a stress-inducing. Even that show pointed out that but they're making their foods as addictive as possible. Plus the toxins in the food do destroy, like the endocannabinoid that regulates sleep-wake cycle and appetite. I think there's a separate endocannabinoid, although the cannabis will do that. The cannabis is replacing its oleoethanolamide. A long time ago, I read the paper that explained Chinese restaurant syndrome and stuff is when you eat excessive amounts of MSG, which is another thing used to enhance flavor and cover up funk in the beginning, in the processed foods and shit. Actually, an old study by now, it's 26 years old. That study it triggers the synthesis of palmitoyl ethanolamide, one of the endocannabinoids, and it's a cytoprotective, a gut protective endocannabinoid. It's reactant to the MSG. The only use that I have for MSG is in the treatment of cancer. Otherwise, it absolutely shouldn't be in there. It's in any food product. It's one of the many techniques that food chemists have been learning for years, how to mask, how they can buy the funkiest crap on the market, the lowest price, then buy other cheap additives and shit like that to make it more palatable and more addictive to you and stuff. They don't really care about toxicity or anything like that. They just want you to consume as much of their product as they can. But I mentioned that I had bought a can of seasoned, fajita strips, which is the way they had cut the meat was almost identical to the stewed beef that I'm getting. It's, roast beef with beef broth in a tin. It has minimal sodium in it because people are, if it's not salty enough, they may add some to it. And the name brand is way too salty. That tells me they're trying to cover up. The name brand is probably actually buying some of the cheapest freaking beef on the market that's about to turn, as we call it. It started to just decompose. The collagenase is breaking down the collagen and other, there's all sorts of enzymatic changes going on as that beef. It needs to go through some aging to produce really great tasting beef. Because I know all about beef. My parents were members of the beef club before there was, a lot of readily available ice and refrigeration. And as a matter of fact, my dad picked up one of those old-timey, that's the way we say it, old-timey ice boxes that had a heavy zinc-plated pan in the bottom where, you see the ice man cometh. So that's actually because people often waited. They had these big wooden, just barely, I don't really remember any insulation in the thing. It was just thick wood. The wood acts as an insulator. And they would actually, the ice, all of a sudden, it's amazing how that thing will suddenly black out on me. But you really kind of have to put the ice in the bottom of the box to keep maybe from condensation falling on food or drippage onto food, because the pans can't completely contain the cool. The ice has to be exposed to the kind of the convection going on in there. And so I remember very well those guys, they used to wear like a burlap, kind of little tunic thing over them, and use them ice tongs and carry, 25, 50-pound blocks up. In New York City, just think about it. They had to go up to the top floor carrying usually it was no more than a 25-pound block of ice. And shit, it's... So my point that I'm trying to make here, did it again. And that just makes me want to... So when I was eating that spices that normally smell okay and stuff like that, and used to be, considered pleasant by me and told everybody else, that can of the seasoned fajita, I could taste the red bell pepper, the paprika in there and stuff, and that actually is the flavor that persisted the longest. But the other spices and stuff that was in that mix, and it was just horrible tasting. I poured out all the liquids to reduce the... I still ate it, and I was going like, nope, next time every can gets rotated and checked before I put it in my basket. I think I'm going to have to start, I don't know, because see, they may be... I understand modern cheese making is, I really want to get some more natural. That's actually real cheese made with real rennet, which is calf vomit, is what I would prefer, because the sodium present is going to be low, and in the natural, I don't really have a problem with sodium and stuff. But I really want to try to adjust, but I'm making the point now is that I'm not the first, and there's tons of people who've done this stuff where they've cleansed their palate, and we've become super sensitive to all these spice things. Those spices, I've tried to tell you, I've made other videos trying to explain like the origins of mustard. Mustard was ground, and then those historical accounts come from like England, like shrews. If the meat that you butchered like the night before, been drained and cut up and took to the market the next day, if you didn't sew it all that day, you immediately rubbed it with ground up mustard seed to cover the funk as the meat begins to turn, being exposed to high. Please remember that chemical reactions are temperature sensitive. I'm trying to explain to a lady friend of mine about, how it's to never finish a meal with anything cold. Don't drink cold liquids with your meal and stuff like that. It slows down the whole digestive, the chemical reactions slow down, and if you actually eat like ice cream, even the peristalsis, the contraction of your gut, which is usually like 3 times a minute, when you start feeling your stomach, you're feeling hungry, that's your stomach telling you it will contract, give you the first sign it's time to put something in me. And she didn't even recognize the term peristalsis. And she was talking about drinking coffee, and I said, it's really mostly the hot water. And now I'm wondering I think I'm glad I'm sticking to fresh ground coffee beans, even though they're burnt black, a lot of tannic acid. This will probably go a long time. At least I can be pretty much sure, well, you never know. They might have actually dredged them through brine before letting them dry. That may be actually the cool-off process that come right out of the roaster. I'm thinking of the process. I'm just doing it right now. I can see it coming right out of the roaster, dredging it through brine and stuff to cover, and then using the heat that's inside the bean to just put it on a conveyor belt, let it dry. And of course, once it's burned black like that, its shelf life is, especially if the unground beans with a little light brine coating on it, are antimicrobial between the tannic acid and the salt, and just gives you tremendous shelf life. That's why you can buy the crappiest, lowest grade beans on the market burn them black. I think that's pretty much what Starbucks sells, is the lowest grade coffee beans on the market. And they try to buy us when their prices are low and the grade is low, buy it, burn it, grind it, package it, oxidize it. But I can tell now, it's every time when I taste, you know, every time I've tasted it, last time been, oh gosh. The last couple of times I've gone like, well, I need to go shopping, but let me see if I can satisfy my, you know, my hunger temporarily. And no, every time I just end up spitting it out and throwing it in the trash. Anytime I eat any kind of processed food and shit, is what used to be, and now I'm really, and the product I'm buying, the beef, is super lean. They're actually adding some liquid beef fat into the mix. It's in the broth, but there's no really, it's very lean meat and stuff. I don't mind that little bit of animal fat. It's what I use for chapstick. But my palate is getting to where I cannot eat processed or ultra processed foods. I just can't. I'm much more sensitive to the taste, no matter how much they try to disguise it, deodorize it, reduce your ability. That's when I was like reading. Do you remember me reading off those 2-year out of date? See, that's what bugged me. Is I know somebody had watched. It's the fucking guy here local. That woman that came up here, I'd never seen her before, black woman, and I think she had been hired like through Uber Eats to pick up and deliver. They have a messenger service, and she just, you know, he showed her a picture of me and said, deliver this to the guy at 1709. She came up and just handed it to me. She didn't say, God, you know, I said, God bless you, whatever. I was just trying to be polite. But right on top, the first item was them weird peach rings. And I was reading off, that's one of the things that they do to cover up the fact that those peaches got to be green and have peach flavoring added. You know, you can make all kind of these fruity esters and shit. I may have told you how that, you know, as a kid, I was studying how they, you know, where do they get the artificial flavor for those little banana and strawberry flavored chews? And it turned out to be citronella. Citronella heated to a certain point. And citronella is toxic. It's used as a insect repellent, mosquito repellent. Citronella lemongrass salads are eaten. The people that live in really bad mosquito, you know, rice growing territories and stuff like that live in stilted houses because mosquitoes fly low until they find a victim, and then they fly up to. And so those people tend to live in stilted houses. And I've seen a lot of videos that where they get there and they cut up they'll sit there and eat and fill their gut full of toxic fiber. It has almost no starch, almost little nutritional value, but it's citronella. And lemongrass is citronella. And that helps to keep the mosquitoes off of them because they're literally excreting the toxin all the time. And they eat huge amounts. If you can find the videos and stuff, the individual, I mean, I don't even remember them hardly putting anything on it. The stuff is a flavoring. They may use a little bit of animal fat or something because they don't know if they, well, maybe using vegetables. I've told you before too about how they have to heat these toxic vegetable oils to about 560 degrees Fahrenheit, and palm oil is completely, there's some lower grades of palm oil that just cannot be deodorized. I can instantly taste it. Oh my goodness. That's where they try to cover it up with, usually with sugar. So it wasn't just me. Other people who've taken months and adjusted their palate suddenly realize that stuff that they used to love now tastes fucking horrible. Because we haven't, they've gotten past the addictive qualities of the food, and they're with a kind of a cleansed palate. They can taste how horrible these ultra-processed foods and stuff like that. Yes, uniformly, everybody, the people that went through the pure cornflake test said that they were tasting metal. So it wasn't just me. The people have been doing this. And actually, if that video, it was like 20 minutes as it was, if it had really gotten into an in-depth discussion, it would have been 2 freaking hours. The comments below and stuff were going like, yeah, they're claiming it's health food, and yet it's still full of Roundup. Yeah. Full of glyphosate. I react really badly to glyphosate. I don't really eat any kind of grain, cereals. I might eat Texas, if it's guaranteed, Texas rice. Yep. Because I've investigated that. My best friend's brother's a big-time rice grower. They use calcium chloride to kill the rice, make it hard enough for harvest. And then calcium chloride doesn't, unlike sodium chloride, doesn't damage the soil. It adds some calcium to the soil, which the plant needs and stuff. So about the only kind of grain that I would eat would be Texas, because I'm sure of the situation here, because pretty much the people who do the spraying and stuff, they're pretty much all tied together, and what they want is something that won't destroy their rice paddies and stuff. They cannot contaminate. They can't put glyphosate into a paddy without it, it gets flooded all, frequently, that without eventually killing their own product. It's, it just wouldn't. So I'm pretty sure the chemistry on that, because my best friend's wife is a professor of biochemistry. So that's about the only, yeah, if I ever get around to ever eating any kind of cereal, grain again, it would be Texas rice, and then I'd even be worried about, I want to make sure it was packaged in Texas, and there's somebody, then I'll know if it ain't. I get stomach cramping bad from glyphosate. Well, I thought I was doing good. It wasn't common knowledge then that there were, I didn't know, I wasn't really digging into it. But people already knew that they were using, the people that are real active about it had already knew that they were spraying everything from oats to wheat, to, you name it, with glyphosate to kill the plant, and it's a systemic. That's the big thing. It's not just to kill the plant, harden the cereal quickly, desiccate it, so they can harvest it without just mashing it up, and get it to market as quick as possible. Get the highest, because the first to come in gets the highest prices. And then I got a feeling that's when the industrial level people come in, is buy up the crap that's left over, that's of the lowest grade. I've had people trying to tell me, if you look at a card, somebody was arguing me about beer. Beer's made from fucking rice. The junk, the bits and pieces of rice that fall through the screens, and made with malted. Woman was trying to argue with me on my channel. No, it says on the label, made with malted barley. No, there's just a little bit of malted barley in there. And Budweiser, they actually, Beechwood aged, for what, like a week? No, I've seen the actual videos, which are old. That was like on film, they just throw these toxic beechwood chips into the fucking fermentation vat, which they have to keep at a certain temperature. It's true for wine and other kind of alcohol making. You need to keep it warm so that it happens quickly, and that the fermentation doesn't slow down or this stuff. It really has to be done pretty quickly. And stuff, it only takes 7 days. Oh yeah, that's really 7 days to brew up a batch of, but you're drinking essentially American type flavored sake, and sake tastes like shit. They're using hops and malted. They're just throwing malted barley powder in there, not actual whole. But barley may be one of the, I don't know now. But it's all I know is I don't have many food choices and stuff that won't make me sick. And now if my palate tells me that something ain't right, because I was eating some of the house brand, the Great Value, the mild cheddar, and my palate was telling me something's wrong with this cheese, even though it's sorry, that's may not be hard on your end, but that's kind of a sharp but ring. I was starting to the mozzarella. I may have to actually go back to the mozzarella, because I want something that's that's not beef, but it also helps with that kind of coagulating and clogging up my creating a butt plug and stuff. I didn't really have some of the mozzarella though. It kind of, but there's so many. Let's go back to the peach rings and stuff. They only not had the they not only had the malic acid that was in the unripe fruit, they added more malic acid, fumaric acid, all kind of stuff to cover up the funk of that, and then on top of all that, sugar. As a matter of fact, I'm beginning to wonder now, the sodium content in soda pop, if they're not adding salt to cover up a really bad, horrible GMO high fructose corn syrup. This stuff, I'm beginning to think that they are. And I drank like a cream soda on the way back yesterday and a cream soda last night, and right now I don't think it's, well, it's really, I'm going to, if at all possible, I'm going to have my shoulder replaced and fixed. I was feeling suicidal when I first got here to Pflugerville, or just before coming to Pflugerville. Things looked so bleak. I was feeling suicidal, but I'm not now. And I have no intention of harming myself or anybody else except in self-defense. Trust me, I keep those 2 little deals of pepper spray handy all the time. I had a can of pepper spray in my fucking pocket when I went to the doctor. It was in my jacket pocket. Fuck yeah. See, I don't trust anybody. And nobody's going to lay hands on me. My right of self-defense is pumped up to the lethal level when you're dealing with a man with a broken arm and shit like that. That means I get to use anything I want to. I can spray your ass with fucking ammonia if that's what it takes to back you off. Matter of fact, if I could find some good high percentage, like used in drafting, some 70% ammonia, I'd make up a little spray bottle full of ammonia, because it will fucking back you off immediately. You ain't gonna be able to breathe. All I do is, see, I know it's coming, it's about to come. And since I usually wear glasses and stuff, I got my eyes shielded, and all I have to do is just hold my breath until I just spray, straight stream, no fog. That'll tend to blow it back on me. And if you get them right in the face with just one squirt, them motherfuckers are going away and they're going to have trouble breathing for the next 20 to 30 fucking minutes. That's what I used to make for my wife, was ammonia spray bottles, always right by the front door, right there where she could grab it in case somebody came to the door that annoyed her or something like that, or she was afraid of. And I told them, don't worry about the legal, you know, they're at your front door, they're on our property, and you go ahead and spray them. You know, I had to teach my wife how to shoot a pistol and shit. I had to give her a little 380 auto for her birthday lunch. Here, hon. And shit, she didn't grow up in a gun type family. And I'm sorry, there's so many insects dropping off the trees, spider mites and shit, and there's all kind of gnats. It's springtime here. It's warm enough for the chemistry of cold-blooded creatures to function now. So they're all gonna remember, chemical reactions are temperature dependent. That's one of the first lessons in chemistry is, and it's like 10% per 10 degrees or something. You know, I think they're even talking about Fahrenheit or Celsius. It doesn't really fucking matter. It's oh God, I got one crawling in that. I was amazed the other day that one of these went through 2 wash cycles actually, or at least it went through 1 wash cycle, didn't even damage it, or it didn't destroy it. But then I've seen the video where the guy takes them apart and gets them under a microscope to show you the microphone, how small it is and how it functions. And they're pretty well sealed. These have to be designed to be waterproof, sweat-proof. You know, sweat dripping down. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm on a tirade now. I'm getting to where I just, it's getting to where I really can't accept food from other people because they tend to pick out, processed, ultra-processed foods for me. And actually, I was thinking about going shopping today because what I picked up Friday's already starting to run low. And also, I've been going through tons of benzalkonium chloride during this cleanup period and stuff. And I've got to find another source of, and I really freaking can't think of any. And sure, it might be Texas rice, but if it's been, Uncle Ben's minute rice, yo mama's so stupid it takes her an hour to cook minute rice. That's a good old play in the dozens. Those are little fuckers. I'm sorry, I'm just under constant bombardment by spiders, mice. There's all kind of insects just dropping off this tree above me. And I think that the secret to me actually quitting is, number one, I have to be in a stress-free environment and then pay $12 a pack instead of $5 a pack and get those American spirits who claim to be all natural, under American labeling laws. That actually means nothing. All I ever know is that every time a friend has offered me an American spirit, like the blue, that's supposed to be the light ones, I think, they're harsh. And these, have, because tobacco, the way they, dry it and process it and stuff, it's, for a long time, I smoked the Winston Golds because it's supposed to be just tobacco and water. And but you know, that's how you, because they dry it to the point to where if you just touch it, it turns into powder. Then it has to be rehydrated. And but since it wasn't selling and stuff, they were I was getting good price on the Winston Gold 100s, but they were usually real stale, and that's because moisture can kind of go in and out of that cellophane shit. That is not a, it's not a completely waterproof barrier. It must be semi-permeable. Enough moisture as they go through heating, cooling cycles, and it kind of dries out and becomes harsh. I'm sorry, that's the weirdest looking. He's actually got like a shed on top of his. That's a weird looking shed, dude. So, all you people in live that good, like I was talking about earlier about how mustard came into the spice rack and stuff. And spices are there primarily to cover up funky, rotting, low-grade food and shit, and then you become kind of addicted to those spices and stuff, to where even if it's put on, on good quality food, you're still have acquired that taste for them. There are very few spices that are not toxic. Simple as that. You know what? I'll repeat it. You know what the secret ingredient, that special hot dog flavor is? Look up nutmeg and its shell mace. Oh, it kind of is like a tendrils over it to kind of, that's some toxic shit. It's really, they always use something to disguise, usually the low-grade beef that's been sitting around in these buckets of trimmings and stuff. Look at it. Nutmeg's toxic, and its shell is even more toxic. And that's the secret ingredient, that special hot dog flavor. That's it. Look up mace. Get you some pictures of mace. You'll see it's actually the shell of the nutmeg. I've told you about cashews. My own testing indicates that cashews, even when roasted like hell, they're very dark and stuff like that, they're still toxic. The oil is, it kind of blistening or irritant oil that you find in poison ivy, poison sumac, cashew apples, all that kind of shit. It obviously is causing defects. I'm going to tell you now, this will be turned on me again. I told you before in another video that I used to, sometimes I'd put in a, 24, 40-hour day, researching, making notations and stuff like that. And then when I drive home from Austin, it's only used to be like a, 50-minute drive or so and stuff. When I get home, I wouldn't feel like cooking a steak or something like that. And so instead of meat, I would eat those 10.5-ounce cans of cashews that were just lightly roasted at Walmart's for $2.78 for 10.5 ounces of, And then I began to notice, because at the time it smells like the aroma that comes off of strawberry candy or strawberry soda pop. It's fucking up the esters in the final stage of digestion, and you're absolutely dependent on them I even gave you the name of the ester, the prostaglandin that's critical in the eye, and the drug that I think the brand name is Zalatan, latanoprost, prostaglandin F-alpha-2 isopropyl ester. When your shit starts smelling like strawberry candy or strawberry soda pop, you know something's wrong. You know, back in the day, doctors used their nose a lot. A doctor had to get up close, always got up close to you and stuff, and smelled, paid careful attention. Because many diseases give off certain aromas and stuff. Or your breath will give off, well, the smell of apples or shit like that. Ethylene gas, you know. And I don't care if I go fucking 50 minutes here. You people give me a hard time here in Pflugerville for being picky about my diet. I don't want to be sick. I'd like to live another 10. At this point, I think I'll have enough mobility because I'm going to push for the power wheelchair at the end of this shit. I'm not going to leave fucking rehab until they've delivered, because I know they've still got an active power chair store in the Bryan College Station area. Still got at least one. And then I could get transported right here. And until I find housing and shit, I know there are several plugs and stuff. And really, I know a secret that y'all don't know that I don't want to talk about, because then they might start locking the boxes on them. But there's certain things to look for that always has, you know, at least 2 plugs on it, because that's the nature of the business. And they can't really leave it locked, because the guy who comes to utilize that thing isn't going to be carrying around, you know, some bundle of keys to match every lock. There's no standard locks on them. You know, it's a little something I figured out, you know. Anyway, I think I'm going to have to cut it short here. My palate is super sensitive now. And I've known a good part of my life is one of the reasons that I smoke is to stop the constant nasal drippage I get from being around people with fragrances and stuff. It stops the hacking. You've heard me hacking and stuff. That's because we had real serious pollen around then, and it's from the automobile pollution. Ordinarily, I rarely ever cough, except clearing my lungs after the first puff of good quality medicinal cannabis. So all of you people who think you're eating such a great diet and stuff like that, leafy grains and everything, getting lots of roughage and eating all these heart health marked with heart healthy and does this and that, it's all a pack of lies. You know, that the video that I just got through watching, I know they were actually quoting parts of the Harvard study that showed that the American diet is pathogenic, carcinogenic. I know exactly why. And educated people in this country know why. And we know how the system, we know that the American Heart Association was funded by Crisco. That's how it works. Anybody, any professional association that's got their label on it that's heart healthy and all that shit, they're making money even though they're supposed to know that it's not heart healthy. Like I'll finish again. I used to always tell my students from 30 years ago that as I'm speaking and stuff like that, I will repeat what Barbara Tuchman says about truth being a matter of convention, and that in biomedical research, truth is a commodity that is bought and sold daily.